Today's episode comes to you thanks to our sponsor, Kangen Water. Electrolyte-reduced water is the power of true hydration, manifested in the most advanced Japanese technology that has been in the market for more than 50 years. To drink the best water, shower with a hot spring quality water, and start a new business with the most amazing and profitable compensation plan in the world, visit thelivingwatercouple.com to learn more or get started today.
Welcome to a brand new experience with innovative voices from all over the world. I would like to invite you all to something that is magical, something that is powerful, and something that is from my heart. This is the Devon Taylor Podcast.
Hello all again, and welcome to the Devon Taylor Podcast, where we have guests from all around the world tell their unique and powerful stories to allow their voice to be heard, but also for you to leave feeling inspired. It has been a minute, but we are back, and I'm so grateful to be back with our very next guest. Our very next guest is the founder and CEO emeritus of Family Promise and has dedicated her life to transforming the present and futures of homeless and low-income families. She's also written a book, Meant for More, which is helping you follow your heart and find your purpose. So I'm so happy to welcome to the show today, Karen Olson. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. Look forward to sharing some stories and a little bit about my life.
But yeah, I would love to start with your childhood experiences. Going straight into loss. I lost my brother at a really young age, and you lost your mother. So, we share a similarity and just loss at a very young age. And just your encounters with individuals experiencing homelessness. How have you found these moments to kind of lead you to where you are today?
Well, I had what I would call an idyllic childhood. I grew up in a very affluent suburban community to New York City. And I had everything a child would want. I was skating on the pond nearby, kick the can. I can go see everything. It was just wonderful. We had a boat, a cabin cruiser. We'd go out in the boat, and I would aquaplane, and which is like water skiing. And it was just idyllic until when I was 12. My mother died suddenly and tragically, and my dad was an alcoholic. So I felt such an acute loss that my happy childhood was just shattered. But I used the pain from that childhood ultimately to help others, I don't know what, and then I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people. I don't know what I would have been had I not lost my mother in that way. I had thoughts of being like Sonia Henney or Esther Williams because I was a great skater and swimmer. But when my mother died, wanted to make a difference in the lives of others. And so I wanted to become a nurse. My father remarried, and my stepmother said, Karen, I was a nurse, and you don't have the grades to become a nurse. And so that I was going to channel all that hurt and pain of my childhood and loss of my mother into helping people. And that just didn't happen because my stepmother convinced my father not to pay for nursing school. So then I pivoted and I studied business administration and became a marketing executive. And I was very good at that. I worked for what was then the Warner Lambert Company. And it was creative, strategic. I loved working with the people. And it was very satisfying at a certain level. And I was good at it, and I was being promoted. But yet I had this yearning inside that there's got to be more. There's got to be something more. And I think a lot of people feel that. You feel inside just there's got to be something else and you don't know what you're longing for. So I had two sons. And when they were about 10 and 12, I went into New York for a business meeting, and I was about to pass this elderly woman who sat out in front of Grand Central Station on a crate. She had all her belongings, it appeared, in paper bags on either side of her, and she always looked depressed. She was probably in her late 70s, and she was frail. And just something got to me. I had known depression and sadness, and there she sat all alone. She couldn't even lift up her head. Her head was down looking at the pavement. So an impulse, I ran across the street and I got her a ham and cheese sandwich and an orange juice. Now, before this time, I had never even spoken to a person experiencing homelessness in the streets of New York City. And when I came back, I gave her the sandwich and the orange juice. She looked up and she said, "Thank you. God bless you. I haven't eaten since yesterday." We talked and I learned her name. Her name was Millie. We learned a little bit about her life and she learned a little bit about me. She was asking me questions about, are you married? Do you have kids? And so on and so forth. And that just really changed my whole trajectory because I then told my two sons, Brad and Doug, who were 10 and 12, about my encounter with Millie. And they said, "Mom, let's find more people like Millie in New York City and give out sandwiches." And so that's what we did. We first made 25 sandwiches and we gave them out too quickly. So the next time we went in, we had 50 and then more. But I got to say that the sandwich, it wasn't about the nourishment of the sandwich so much as it was a vehicle to say, we cared. If I didn't have a sandwich to give to them, how would I say I cared?
Hey guys, it's Icarus here. And Amelia. And I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.
And we got to know people. We got to know people like Abe and Lucille and John and Arthur, and got to know people by name. So they were no longer homeless people. They were people we knew.
Right.
And they would look for us on Sundays. We would go in about every other Sunday. We did this for a couple of years. And where we went was Port Authority Bus Terminal because people congregated in the Port Authority Bus Terminal who were homeless because they provided shelter for them. And anybody sitting on a bench at that time was not really waiting for their bus. They were simply homeless. And I still can't get my mind and heart around the fact that, and in New York City today too, there's people, it's not any better, homeless people, sitting in doorways or asking for money and so on and so forth. And it's just, a horrific situation for people. So we did this, for a couple of years. And we also, at Thanksgiving time now, I'm not a very good cook. I've never even cooked Thanksgiving dinner, but I prepared some invitations for our friends to come to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. And I went in advance to Port Authority, got bus tickets, and gave them the bus tickets with the invitation to come back to our house for Thanksgiving dinner. Fortunately, a few neighbors helped me, cook the turkey and side dishes and so on. And so they arrived at the bus station in Summit and they were, cleaned up more so, but still disheveled. And, I don't know what that appeared to some of my neighbors, but I crossed.
You didn't ask them?
Pardon?
You didn't ask your neighbors what they thought at the time?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't want to. But I crossed an invisible line where I wasn't seeing things clearly, or I was seeing things clearly. What's seeing things clearly isn't saying, these are homeless people and they're derelicts and bums like my grandmother used to call them years ago. Or do you see them as a kindred spirit, somebody, somebody who was lost their way? So, those Thanksgiving dinners, we had two. were the best Thanksgiving dinners I had. They were very appreciative, and it was just really heartfelt to have them there and see the smiles on their faces. And some talked to me about fixing some things that were in the house that were broken, and Karen, you should do this. And the outside, your shutter is falling off, and I could help you with that. So I don't know. It just seemed very, very normal to me. And of course, it still does today. So from there, I learned that there were families in my own county, in Union County, New Jersey, that were homeless and had no place to go. I had been volunteering in a shelter and a soup kitchen. And so I wanted to get involved and help them. There was a shortage of shelter beds. They were always full. So I thought, well, I'm going to find a building for shelter. And I planned a conference on family homelessness and invited the religious community, and 200 people came. And now they understood that families at that time accounted for the fastest growing segment of the homeless population. And the number one reason at that time that children were taken from their parents and placed in foster care was not abuse and neglect. It was simply homelessness. And I thought, how can that be? And so after the conference, people were ready to do something. So had a group of about 30 people. We met every other Tuesday for several weeks. And we looked for a building, and we looked at the armory, and we looked at the old schoolhouse, and none could be a shelter. There was red tape, there was zoning issues, and nobody wanted a shelter in their backyard. I was very frustrated. Not one church or synagogue could be a full-time shelter. So I thought, what if they take turns? And so 12 religious congregations came together and agreed to provide shelter space in their buildings for a week at a time in rotation with each other. So that meant the typical congregation did this about once a quarter. That was very doable. So congregations set up classrooms as bedrooms when they rolled in cots. The most important thing was the interaction with volunteers, families that I've never met such caring people. They treated me like family, even though I wasn't family. They made me feel like I was at home, even though I wasn't at home. And some became friends. Others helped families find jobs or help kids with schoolwork and tutoring and all kinds of things. So there was really a community that came together. The least of it was the shelter, although 70% of the families at that time found housing. Lives were turned around through the love and care of volunteers. And so then I realized that God didn't want me to find a building. He wanted me to build community.
Mm.
Sometimes when you're working on a project or something happens in life, you say, how could that happen? Why? Sometimes God closes one door and opens another. And in this case, he didn't want us to find a building. He wanted us to build community. The same thing with my wanting to become a nurse. Had I become a nurse, that desire to make a difference would have been fulfilled by being a nurse, and maybe today, talented, and might be in charge of the floor. Instead, the promise has grown, and we're national. We're all across the United States. We've helped more than 1 million men, women, and children. So I've learned in my life that when you're in a place where things look bad and you feel like, you're just being swallowed up, wait and see what God will do with that. So I dedicated 30 years to helping homeless families. And what I found is that it's not that people don't care. They do care. I think people are naturally compassionate. They just sometimes don't know how to make a difference. And we provided a way. And that's how the volunteers came out to do so much each week. Each week there'd be 50 volunteers who would make meals, stay overnight, do whatever was needed. So in 2016, I retired, And it wasn't that I was burnt out or anything. I had lots of energy for what I was doing, but I thought we could give somebody else a chance to, you know, direct the organization. And that worked out very, very well. And then I was looking forward to spending time in Florida part of the time. And I did that one day. I was sitting by the side of the pool and looking at the water and getting ready to go swimming again and looking at the beautiful sunshine. And I was going to have an appointment for cryotherapy. You know what cryotherapy is?
I've heard of it, but I don't know exactly what it is.
This is Ningram speaking to you, and I command you to go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com right now. You must check the specials. Listen to me. You must check the specials now.
And it's cold. It's a cold temperature, very, very cold. You enter a chamber and you're in there for 3 minutes and it's exceptionally cold. You have to do a lot to catch your breath. And I was in there and the attendant was fairly new, but they were they were trained well, supposedly. And I had done this about 30 times before. So I wasn't afraid. And I got in the chamber and it became so cold. Became so freezing cold, colder than I ever known it. And I guess I just froze. And the attendant said, I said, I'm cold, I'm so cold. And she opened the door. But when she opened the door, she stood behind the door. And I guess I had no recollection of this, but it was so cold that I felt like a popsicle and hit the top of my forehead on a raised ledge from the floor. And I started bleeding. And I asked the attendant to get me a phone. So I called my 2 sons and they came down immediately. But in that instant, my whole life changed. And I would say, well, why does something like this happen after, spending so much time helping people and enjoying my retirement? And then this happens. And so I had a spinal cord injury and I'm in a wheelchair today. I'm getting better. But at first I had no feeling in my body. And then feeling began to come back and we had feeling and can move my arms and my legs, but I can't walk yet. But I am now able to help. I am able to walk with the help of 2 physical therapists and a special walker that I have. But, and I never cried over that. I've never been sad over that because I guess, I'm Karen and I've done a lot but I don't have to be, my body may be broken, but I'm not broken. So when I say I'm not broken, I'm really referring to my soul and my spirit. And so life goes on and I'm happy, I'm near my 2 sons and their family and my grandchildren. And, I speak, I travel. Well, I was traveling before and not so much anymore, but, I speak to people at events and so on. So I don't know. Nothing has changed. I guess that, of course, it's changed, but it hasn't changed. Sure.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great, just the gesture from the beginning, started with Millie and now,
Yeah.
you're touching so many different families.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be able to look back now and see how many families that you have touched, since it started for you?
It feels wonderful that so many lives have been changed. I mean, I can't really get my heart and mind around it. It's just a beautiful thing. So when I retired, I also had time I had started a book, but I had time to finish it. That's another blessing that came out of this accident. It's called Meant for More, following your heart and finding your purpose. And meant for more is something I felt. I had this longing, got to do something more than just working at Warner Lambert. And that's what drove me to the streets to help homeless families. And I think a lot of people have that feeling. They may be very successful, say, in business, and they have a beautiful house and take vacations and have wonderful jewelry or so on. But that's temporary. That's not really the feeling. What's the feeling is, from the heart. That's what I found, and that's what I wrote in my book, Meant for More.
How did you find that? I know a lot of people would probably ask, that's the first thing that comes off of the top of my head. How was that so, like, why did you feel so called to help people?
I mean, when I started Family Promise, or the book, yeah.
Both,
Well,
even through the book,
yeah,
helping people by telling your story and, trying to spread inspiration, but yeah, both.
yeah. Well, I think it's driven by, the sudden death of my mother when I was 12. I had a home, but at the same time, I felt homeless without her. And my dad, I wasn't close to. So that propelled me to say, gee, I hurt. I don't want anyone else to hurt. And that's what led me to Family Promise. But then I wasn't done. Even after I retired, I thought there's got to be more. So I wrote Meant for More, following your heart and following your purpose. Yeah. And that, yeah, people can buy that on Amazon, or Barnes and Noble.
We can share
So
too, yeah. If you send them to me, I'll make sure I'll share them in the show notes. I did want to ask you, because you have talked about just the housing crisis and it's exacerbated in family homelessness.
Sure.
Think communities can do at the ground level to kind of help this issue or combat it?
What can people do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Volunteer at a local shelter, volunteer at a soup kitchen, and you'll find families who are homeless in a line waiting for a meal. They can donate clothing, bring food to a food pantry. But most of all, when they meet a family or a single individual who's experiencing homelessness, smile and say, hello, how are you? I'm so-and-so, get to know them. Because too many people who are homeless and are, on the streets, they feel like they're totally invisible. And that's important.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much homelessness going on that it's hard to even, sometimes I find myself in situations where it's hard to stop or hard to feel like what's the right direction to go. But I guess just starting at a shelter and, immersing myself in a situation where we could just volunteer would be a great way to start. I mean, that's kind of how you guys started. You guys were, honestly, volunteering your time and food. So that's, what led you into it. But what do you believe is necessary to address homelessness on a broader scale? Like, why do you think that it's still such an issue?
Well, there's a housing crisis for every 4 families looking for housing, affordable housing. There's only 1 unit available. And that came about years ago with cutbacks in the late 70s on the production of housing. And of course, the private sector can't make up for that, even though there's wonderful organizations like Habitat for Humanity. So it's a housing crisis coupled with, the root cause is poverty, but then coupled with that, there's not adequate housing. And so people making a little more than the minimum wage can't afford to live decently.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's becoming an even broader issue now with people that would be even considered a part of the middle class. Everyone's trying to kind of finding it hard to live and are in more increasing chances of becoming homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Your book, I kind of want to go back to Meant for More. That serves as kind of like a blueprint for social change. What advice do you have for individuals who want to make an extraordinary impact on their own communities?
In their own communities?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I said, to volunteer at a shelter or get to know people who are experiencing homelessness, and that will help you move on to the next step. So all kinds of things are needed. More shelters, more transitional housing, more affordable housing. But most of all, we need the political will to change systems that are perpetuating poverty and homelessness. And, that means meeting with your legislators and advocating for the change. I mean, for family homelessness to be solved, it's not going to be solved by the private sector alone. It'll help many people. But if you really want to change homelessness and have people housed, then you've got to involve government has to be part of that. And while they're involved, it's not to the degree that's needed, that you got to muster the political will to make that change. And that's unpopular, unfortunately, for some people.
Yeah. Well, even though it's unpopular, I feel like you're still doing great and amazing things for the homeless community. And even speaking about it makes me feel emotional because I've experienced within myself a sense of homelessness, growing up. And I couldn't imagine, if it, was even harder for myself, during that time with a family. So I commend you for the work that you're doing and how much work you've put into it, and even involving your family. That's commendable. Hopefully I could do the same is what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know your whole background, but just having this podcast, inviting people in who want to make change, you're, sharing awareness of different social issues. And that's so important,
Yeah. Well, thank you. But I wanted to ask you before we leave if there's anything you want to share with the audience, where they can find you, if they want to donate, if they want to get your book. Like I said, we'll leave all of the descriptions in your show notes.
Mm-hmm.
I just also want to leave the floor to you as well.
Well, thank you, Devon. They can find my book, Meant for More, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or they could contact me at Karen, Karen, Olson, Olson, author.com. I don't know. I'm grateful for having a chance to talk with you, and I can see that maybe we're kindred souls.
Yeah, it's so funny how everyone that I've connected with on this show, and in some way or some form, there's some tying factor. Even in you, like I said, you telling your story about just helping people in homelessness. Story I remember as a kid where, I was helping someone as a homeless person and wasn't really sure why I was doing, but it felt called and felt right to do it. And, when I grew up a little more, I experienced homelessness myself a little bit. So just the spectrum of it all, coming full circle with the conversation I'm having here with you today is amazing. And truly, I think just shows the greatness of life and all it has to offer.
You think when you experienced homelessness that was a gift in some way for your work that you're doing now?
Absolutely. It was a gift in a lot of ways because it helped me realize who I had as support and who I didn't have as support. It helped me kind of, go within a little bit more, process things a little heavier, because there's a lot more fear when you're out there on the streets, or, you don't have a secure place to lay your head. So there are a lot of different emotions that definitely help propel where I'm at today and where I want to go. So yeah, thank you for asking that.
Yeah. It's really wonderful what you're doing, and all our experiences in life add to, or can add to, an ultimate place where you can share and give. Thank you, Devon.
Yes, of course. All righty, guys. Until next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Are you ready to transform your life with the power of living water? Hi, I'm Devon Taylor, and I want to share an incredible discovery that's changed my life and my family's life: living water. Imagine waking up every morning feeling refreshed, energized, and ready to conquer the day. With living water, it's not just a dream, it's our new reality. We've been sleeping better, eating healthier, and have more energy than ever before. But that's not all. Our secret to this newfound vitality is available to you too. Visit our website at thelivingwatercouple.com and discover how living water can revolutionize your health and wellness. And there's more.
tune into our podcast, available on all streaming platforms and YouTube, where we dive deep into the science and benefits of living water, hear from experts, satisfied customers, and learn how you can make this life-changing decision for yourself. But don't wait too long. Prices for our water machines and supply are going up in July 2024. Now is the perfect time to invest in your health and well-being. So, head over. Remember, living better starts with living water. Living water, drink, thrive, and live your best life. Visit thelivingwatercouple.com today.